Hello, everybody. Welcome. Let me get this all situated to the Week Ahead News Show, episode 51. Just me today. My good friend Tommy wasn't able to make it. He's out in Columbus, ready to take an exam, bar exam. Good luck to you, Tommy. You got this, man. Two days, 2 sessions. You got it. Clear head. You'll be able to do it. Hope everyone's having a great night. Send some positive vibes for Tommy taking his bar exam in the chat. He'll be back next week once he passes that. It's you weather below me and stocks for today above me. Looks like minor losses, about in the 1%, 1.5, 1.8 in the negatives. It's currently February 23rd, 2026. Once again, Week Ahead News Show on Billy Doodle channel, episode 51. Hope everyone's having a great day. I'm Liam. Hope everyone, Monday went quick. Make sure to like, subscribe, ring that bell. Our Facebook is in the description if you want to be notified whenever we go live and have live streams. We post that on there. If you ring the bell at the bottom right of me, that also notifies you on your phone whenever we go live from YouTube, or you just click on that and it pulls it up. Very nice to have. For the weather this week, today we had a high of 30, low of 17. Tomorrow is a high of 30, low of 15. Partly cloudy. Wednesday, snow again, 70% chance. High of 38, low of 25, getting a little bit hotter. This whole week's been weird. Wednesday was supposed to be clear and like 42 this morning, so whatever. Thursday, 50% chance of snow, 35 high, 22 low. Friday, sunny, high of 45, low of 20. Saturday, partly sunny, high of 52, low of 34 to help with the snow melt. Getting back into the cold for Sunday, partly cloudy, or just cloudy, high of 36, low of 19. Next Monday, high of 30, low of 14. Partly cloudy Tuesday. Next Tuesday and Wednesday looks like some snow too. Our moon is at 45% illumination. It's at for waxing crescent stage. Next moon set is at 1:41 a.m. Next full moon's in 8 days, so be ready for that if you're a werewolf. For our sunrise, first light today was at 6:38 a.m. Sunrise today was at 7:06 a.m. Sunset today at 6:06 p.m. With last light at 6:30, getting us 11 hours a daylight, getting more. We were at about 10 and a half before. We're getting up there, so I'm really happy to see that. I'm getting more into the springtime, more sunlight, thank God. Stocks for the last 5 days, I'll be doing as well for last week. Dow Jones was basically down 730 points for the last 5 days. No bueno. It doesn't tell me percent here, so that kind of sucks. I wonder if I do this. Okay. Poor Dow. S&P for the last week was up 3 points, not many. So small gains for some of these bad boys. Like Apple doing well. So all depends. We have stocks above us as well. Be going right into our funny topic, which is kind of an issue we have a lot here too sometimes every week. It's about how late night comedy writers are debating whether the president is even funny, and they're having issues with writing about him and the stuff that's happening in live events right now. There's an article published by Cracked, spotlighted an unusual dilemma inside the world of late night television. Comedy writers are openly debating whether the president is even funny anymore, and whether that's actually a problem. For decades, late night comedy has thrived on exaggerated personalities in the Oval Office. Same with even South Park. Excuse me. Presidents with big egos, verbal slip-ups. George Bush. Unpredictable behavior or theatrical delivery gave writers endless punchlines, even since the 80s, from awkward gaffes to over-the-top bravado. Presidency often doubled as built-in comedy material, but according to the piece, some writers are now questioning whether current political climate and the president's persona led themselves to humor in the same way. The argument isn't necessarily about policy, it's about comedic structure. Is there exaggeration to heighten? Is there any absurdity to satirize? Or has politics become so serious, polarized, and high stakes that it drains most of the room as a whole? One side of the debate says late night comedy depends on contrast and surprise. The political figure is already restrained, scripted or cautious in a public appearance. There are few organic comedic hooks that happen. Writers can't really rely on viral gaffes or headline-grabbing theatrics the way they once could. The focus shows to lean more towards heavily on political satire, broader cultural commentary, or opposition figures rather than the president directly. So interesting, we kind of seen that as a whole. Also, one thing, since it's just me today, it's probably going to be a little bit of a quicker episode. I kind of didn't want to do like create a bunch of topics with just me, so I kind of only had my own topics. So we'll have one funny topic, one local, one national. I'll take a sip of my drink, and then we'll keep going, guys. Our first national one topic is something like I've been following on my own, but I wanted to talk on here when we haven't yet. It's basically the Artemis 2 update. Which is NASA going back to the moon. NASA starts slow-moving process returning moon rocket to hangar this week. Background: what Artemis 2 is? It's NASA's Artemis 2 mission. It's the first crewed lunar space flight since the Apollo era, intended to send 4 astronauts back around the moon and back. The crew intends 3 Americans: Reed Weissman, Victor Glover, Christina Koch, and 1 Canadian, Jeremy Hansen. Unlike a landing mission, Artemis 2 will be a 10-day lunar fly-by-flight testing spacecraft systems readiness for future moon landings. Like Artemis 3, they did the same back in the Apollo days. They had a ton of test missions, and then they also went around the moon. Just so if you're landing somewhere you've never landed before, it is smart to just do a flyby and take photos, and then say, oh, this is what it looks like. What's the best place to land? You don't just gun it. Not that kind of money, not kind of risk. So some launch preparations and initial setbacks. NASA has been conducting what's called a wet dress rehearsal, a full on-stage simulation that includes fueling the space launch system of SLS rocket with supercooled liquid hydrogen and oxygen running through countdown procedures. An earlier fueling test was cut short when engineers detected a liquid hydrogen leak, forcing NASA to call off a rehearsal and delaying launch planning. Some new challenges, technical issues emerged after fixing the hydrogen leak and conducting a second rehearsal attempt with reasonably normal fueling activity. Engineers identified a new problem in the rocket's helium system, specifically an interruption in helium flow in the upper stage of the SLS rocket, like we talked about before. Space Launch System rocket, that's basically the big rocket that sends it up. Helium isn't the fuel, it's actually a critical support gas used to purge engines and pressurize propellant tanks before launch. Without reliable helium fuel flow, launch systems can't really be confidently operated. Can't clean them out and properly launch them. The rocket rollback for repairs because the helium issue cannot be fixed on the launch pad. NASA decided to roll back Artemis 2's rocket and Orion spacecraft back to the Vehicle Assembly Building, VAB, at the Kennedy Space Center to diagnose and repair the problem. This is slow rollback, roughly a 4-mile trip, was scheduled for the week of February 22nd, so yesterday and today, until even Friday or Thursday. Launch date shifts. Prior to the latest helium issue, NASA had tentatively set launch set date to March 6th. As for earliest launch date, based on Progressive asked after the second fueling test. They wanted to do it early February, but the cold also affected that. We've had more cold fronts in Florida as well. However, because of a rollback for repairs from the March launch window will almost certainly be missed. Engineers now hope to preserve a launch opportunity in April, but it depends on how quickly they can complete repairs and retest systems. Why it matters: historical mission is successful. It would be the first time people have left low Earth orbit since 1972, which is crazy. Testing future from moon landings. It's a key stepping stone towards Artemis 3, which aims to return humans to the lunar surface by 2028. And somebody's talking about how we haven't left low Earth orbit since that long. Elon said we would have been in Mars by 2018. If you look up how many times Elon has delayed going to Mars, back in the early 2000s, he said 2018 we would have been in Mars. He moved it to the early 2000s, moved it to the mid 2020s, my bad. And now he's moving it to the late 2020s and 2030s because he knows. Testing future moon landings. It's a key stepping stone, like I said, towards Artemis 3, which aims to return humans to the lunar surface by 2028. Also, did we talk about with space travel that the moon might be like a gas station, a fueling station for a lot of these long-term rockets? So they could actually, because one of the hardest things about space travel is getting off of just the Earth. for pull of gravity, how big the Earth is, just getting out of that is some of the most fuel that you spend. They try to use other ways of, we had spacecrafts before on the ships. I thought those were beautiful. We started off with Pathfinder and, had other ones, space shuttles that went up. That was a cool system because it didn't spend that much money to actually go straight up. You kind of treated it like a plane, got jumped off by a Boeing, and then you went off. That might be a thing in the future. But right now, rockets do make sense. There was a group that was basically they would spin you. And they were saying how they could spin you and release you at a certain point, like a slingshot, and then send you out into space. That's probably not very fun for your body, so. Engineering complexity. Issues like cryogenic fuel leaks and helium flow glitches are common hurdles in rocket development. But when a crewed flight is at stake, engineers move cautiously to ensure safety, which I agree with. We can't have any of the problems like we've had in the past. There's Apollo test missions, and obviously a Challenger and stuff like that. Current status as of yesterday. Rocket rollback to hangar planned for late February. March launch window effectively closed. Next feasible window, like we talked about, early April. Crew status, astronauts remain on standby. NASA is prioritizing safety and systems readiness. Basically a quick summary flow from test to takeoff. They do a fuel test, hydrogen leak, new seals, second rehearsal. No major leaks, but they did have a helium fault, so they rolled back to the vehicle assembly base. Now we're targeting over here in April. Real quick, and I'll cover. Tommy was actually able to add in to a National 2 topic, and this is a good one too. This actually should have been a funny topic, because of how big Trump crashed out. Supreme Court strikes down Trump's sweeping tariff, sparking fierce pushback and vow of new levies. Basically, Supreme Court, I believe, 6-3, ruled that most of President Trump's sweeping global tariffs are illegal because he overstepped his authority under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, IEEPA. The court emphasized that only Congress has constitutional power to levy tariffs. Now, the president using his emergency powers, and basically Trump had a big crash out about it. He called it a disgrace and loudly criticized the justices, including some that he appointed. In response, he would later announced that he would seek to enact new global tariffs, initially 10%, later floated to 15% on a different legal authority, signaling he won't abandon his trade policy goals, even though he can't do things by the law. So funny to me, watch the video, he crashes out, great to see. So something I thought that was really cool for our local topic one is Dave Thomas, who's a Republican out of Jefferson, and we even talk about sometimes either side, Republicans, us being liberals, we could say they have good ideas, has introduced a bipartisan bill in the Ohio House designated to create minimum statewide standards for electric service agreements between utilities and data center companies. Only problem is, if a big beautiful bill is right and the states cannot regulate data centers, is this considered regulation of a data center? State House Representative, like I said, David Thomas, introduced this bill. It's aimed to manage the rapid growth of data centers in Ohio while protecting utility customers from bearing the costs of infrastructure upgrades. Why this bill now? Ohio has seen a substantial increase in data center development, which brings huge electrical demands, requiring significant transmission and distribution upgrades. Some communities responding with moratoriums, like we've seen in Lordstown, I think even like Vienna, Hubbard or something, on data center approvals due to concerns about strain on electrical systems. Local utilities and environmental issues. And this is just how it always works. If you have a neighbor and he's always blaring music, his Christmas lights are crazy big, he is paying a higher bill, but he's also making your electrical bill higher. And we all know that. It's supply and demand. Bill's purpose, responsibly, that's clear, consistent rules will make it easier to responsibly attract and develop data centers while addressing community frustrations. Legislation would set statewide standards for electric service agreement, or ESAs. Utilities must follow defined practices when entering contracts with data center customers. Standards will include requirements for interconnection procedures, deposit for load studies, and construction milestones, with the Public Utilities Commission of Ohio, or OPUCO, directed to set specific rules within 6 months of enactment. Require long-term commitments and financial assurances. Data center customers will also need long-term service agreements before utilities build dedicated infrastructure. Financial guarantees will be required to ensure utility investments aren't stranded if a project is canceled or if they don't last 5 or 10 years. Protect existing ratepayers. The bill would also prohibit utilities from shifting data center infrastructure costs to other utility customers, which would be great to see. It includes minimum bill standards and obligations for data centers to commit for usage levels for at least 12 years. Very good to see. Expansion on existing utility practice. So the bill mirrors practices already adapted by the AEP Ohio under a tariff approved by the PUCO in 2025, but would likely apply those practices statewide. Maintain local control. Communities could still impose their own moratoriums or local restrictions on their own data center sittings, and that's how they feel about it. Which I feel like is smart. Like I said, I don't want people paying for this. So if you have agreements, and any other utility, good example, if it's water, if it's sewer, a lot of the times these industries will pay for it. You know what I mean? It's a great example. We've seen this in Lordstown, we've seen it in a lot of other cities. These industries are straight up paying for the water line. Hey, you need, when Altium Cells came in Lordstown, they built water towers, paid for it. It was like $3 million. Because Lordstown didn't have the water storage that Altium would need just to have, and I think for fire suppression as well. Fire suppression is a big one. Especially because we're building these massive industries in areas that already have Lordstown, GM, Foxconn, what it's called now. Massive buildings that need massive fire suppression. It's not like they were like, well, we'll pay half of it, and you guys, the city, should pay the other half, and you should make your citizens pay for it, even though it's not going to help them. And it's just not fair. Because, like, a good example is, just like with the water, too. If they pay for the upgrades, a lot of the times, it's not helping out other people, it's just helping for industry. The water line goes to the industry. It's not making sure it goes through every residential neighborhood, just in case the industry leaves. So they're not improving things. I mean, they'll pay for water treatment improvements. I would love that. Water storage for fire. That is true. Thomas is working with Democratic co-sponsor, Democratic out of Lakewood, Tristan Rader, and the bill has 17 additional co-sponsors from both parties, which is good to see. So hopefully we can see that kind of go by and see where things stand. Tommy's local topic 2 for the week is demonstrators express dismay with current event at Good Trumbull uses President's Day to protest. Event overview was a Good Trumbull rally. God, people with speech impediments like me, that's a hard one. Themed democracy over dictators. It was Monday, February 16th, 2026, last Monday, President's Day. It was on Courthouse Square, Warren, Ohio. There were about 60 demonstrators. It was a peaceful protest against the current administration of President Donald Trump, focused on defending democracy and the rule of law. Core message and themes: preserving democracy. Participants expressed a sense of urgency regarding the need to protect democratic institutions, with signs stating we should not have to defend a democracy from the president. Rule of law. Demonstrators also called for adherence to due process and equal rights, describing themselves as pro-America but anti-Trump, anti-authoritarianism. The event invitation explicitly urged opposition to would-be king, who refuses to represent all citizens, which we have seen, called Mexicans bad hombres. I can go on and on. Specific concerns of participants: constitutional integrity. Concerns were raised over that the administration is thumping their nose at the U.S. Constitution, the Jeffrey Epstein case. They demanded full transparency and prosecution for anyone involved in the Epstein scandal, regardless of their status. Immigration. They voiced dismay over treatment of children of immigrants and the lack of clarity regarding the administration's claims of capturing hardened criminals, even though I think it's like 15% of them are criminals, if we could believe them. That's sad. That's something that I personally don't agree with. I'm Irish, and we've seen time and time again back in the day some of our worst crime rates are because Irish and Italian mobs back in the day, and that's just how it is. Back then, we didn't have the technology we had with security. It's different now. Organized crimes is way different now. But I don't feel like you should target the people for that. Learn some history. Eisenhower kind of did the same. In our history books, and a lot of people know, like, Eisenhower was a great president, built roads, was great in the war, but he did try going after immigrants, and after a while they stopped because things just got so crazy. And after a while they understood that immigrants are what built America. Public apathy. Several attendees expressed frustrations with fellow citizens who don't watch the news or ignore the administration's actions, just don't care. The perspectives or general motivation. Some older protesters noted that they were demonstrating for the sake of their children and grandchildren. feeling their time is running short. Legacy of activism, longtime activist compared to current political climate of the 1970s women's rights movement, which me and Tommy have talked about before. The ERA, Equal Rights Amendment, was never passed. It hasn't been passed yet. So to me, that is even crazy, and let's talk about stuff like that. Noting a shift from feeling heard by politicians of the past to feeling disillusioned today. Determination. Despite feelings of dismay, participants emphasize that they are not ready to give up and believe the power of multitasking, being angry about more things in one, to affect change and to attack more things in one. Not really just attacking, but like mentally, how do we get these things better? How do we talk about these things? How do we create solutions? And that's good to see. Because we see, the stock market's not doing too great either under Trump. A lot of that might be the tariffs, you know what I mean, and this uncertainty with that, and the kind of know Trump's going to baby out. So that it's just interesting. Or you know what I mean? We're spending so much money as a whole on DHS, and I hope things change with that. But like me and Tommy talked about time and time again. You can't be killing Americans in the streets. History's never looks kind to that. And if you can't learn from history, you are truly blind. Because I always tell people, and you could look it up. I think it was over 40. It was over 40% of Americans back when the Kent State massacre happened and the National Guard killed students. 40% think they deserved it. And nowadays, it's probably 1-5. I mean, most people don't agree with that. And you have to look it up. It may be like 70. Like, I remember watching a video which like a large amount of Americans like were against them. And you know what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. If you can't learn that, like, even if I'm against something, and in our history, it's always been, well, I've actually been wrong. And, you know what I mean? And 20, 30 years from now, when we're more advanced, more empathetic, we say, that was wrong. We shouldn't have been on that. This is one of them. And we're going to see it time and time again, especially with Trump and all this other crap. We have to be smart with this. It sucks. We should be way more advanced as a country. We should be. If we're true to our Constitution, all the good things we've done for this world as a whole, we need to be more advanced, and that's one of them. So it's nice to see people go out. I always say, protest how you feel for both sides. Don't turn it into a protest like Jan 6, or riot. My bad, like Jan 6. Just be smart and have a good time. So I was happy to see people go out. I know Tommy went out. We talked about it. And he had a good time. It was a little bit cold like this week, so hopefully it's just some better ones happening. I know there's a No Kings Rally in March coming up, so make sure you go on Facebook and look up that kind of stuff for those. That's really it for me to say, guys. I know it's going to be a shorter episode of just my input, just these quick topics that, went on this week. So happy to talk about them. Hope everyone had a great time listening or watching the Week Ahead News Show with me, Liam. Tommy will be back next week. Hope everyone had a good time here at the Lee Doodle channel. We'll be back here Thursday for Northeast Ohio Sports Show. Really excited for that. All the Olympic hockey. I'll actually go over real quick Olympics because I was doing quick recaps, but the women won. Hockey gold. I think it was last Thursday or Wednesday, and the men won on Sunday. Bad, Liam. For gold as well. Crazy games. I was very happy to see, America do well. America finished in second. The women got 8 out of 12 gold medals. It was a record for the Americans in medals as a whole and women as a whole. Medal count. Norway was in first with 18 golds, 12 silvers, 11 bronze, 41 total Americans. United States were in second with 12 gold, 12 silver, 9 bronze, 33 total. Netherlands were in third at 10, 7, 3, 20 total. Italy was in fourth at 10, 6, 14, 30 total. Germany was in fifth at 8, 10, and 8, 26 total. So kind of crazy. South Korea, China, Canada, Japan didn't really have a great year. Switzerland, Austria, Sweden. These are, normally countries that do pretty well in the cold in these Winter Olympics. Some of it, snowboarding, we did really well and had some standout people. Norway, a lot of times they're good at that, like cross-country skiing and stuff. That's stuff that, like, we can't even do. But we're good at snowboarding because we know how to skate, so I like to see that. That American game was amazing. It really was. Our goalie, Hellebuck was just insane. He should never have to buy a beer in America for the rest of his life. That was kind of like our own miracle on ice, I won't even lie. Especially in the overtime. Seeing Hughes score that goal after getting hit was amazing. I was listening to it. I watched most of it, but for the last half of a third and an overtime I listened to it. I went to the Cleveland Auto Show, so that was fun. We'll be talking about F1 coming up, IndyCar, NASCAR here on Thursday on our Northeast Iowa Sports Show. Appreciate everyone stopping by the Week Ahead News Show. Have a good night, everybody, and good night, Youngstown.